You know, your kitchen might just be keeping a secret from you, and it all starts with your backsplash. That tiny little gap you've probably seen, you might think, oh, it's just wear and tear. But no, today we're going to uncover the real story it's trying to tell you. Okay, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're wiping down the counter, maybe after dinner, and you see it. That little gap, right where the backsplash hits the countertop. Or maybe the caulk is just starting to peel away. It's so easy to just ignore it, to say, the house is just settling. But trust me, that's a big mistake. Because that tiny gap, it is a warning sign. Seriously, it's your kitchen literally trying to tell you that something pretty fundamental, we're talking the wall, the adhesive, the whole seal, has started to fail. And ignoring it, well, that's the difference between a quick, small fix now and a huge, expensive headache later on. All right, so let's actually listen to that warning. This isn't just about looks. It's the very first signal that there's a much deeper problem. Yeah, think of it like the tip of an iceberg. Seriously, that little crack is the only thing you can see, but it's pointing to a much bigger problem that's growing behind the scenes, behind the wall. And the longer you let it go, the more damage is being done back there. So, what's really going on back there, behind the tiles? Well, it turns out there are three main culprits, and a lot of the time, they're working together. Okay, culprit number one, movement. You might not think about it, but your kitchen is always in motion. I mean, the dishwasher humming, the heat coming off the stove, even just the house settling, all of that creates these tiny little micro vibrations and temperature changes. And over time, all that expanding and contracting, it puts a ton of stress on the adhesive. And slowly, it just starts to lose its grip. All right, next up, and this one is huge, is moisture. The second a tiny gap opens up, it's basically an open invitation for water. Think about it. Splashes from the sink, steam from a pot of pasta, all of that moisture finds its way in there. And water is like kryptonite for adhesive. Once it gets behind those tiles, it just starts to break down the glue holding everything together. And last but not least, we have simple mistakes. Now, you might be thinking this is just an old house problem, but nope. Even a brand new, just installed backsplash can fail. If the installer rushed the job or maybe used some cheap, low-quality materials, well, that backsplash was pretty much doomed from the very beginning. Okay, so we've met the culprits, but how do they actually create that gap? Well, it's basically a chain reaction, like a line of dominoes that starts to fall after just one tiny little failure. It all comes down to the caulking. You know that sealant line between your counter and the backsplash? It's not just there to look pretty. It is the single most important waterproof barrier you have. It's what protects the wall and the adhesive from all those things we just mentioned. It's really your kitchen's first line of defense. So here's how the dominoes fall. Step one, the seal breaks. The caulk gets old, it dries out, it cracks. Then, step two, moisture sneaks in, and that water starts to soften and weaken the adhesive behind the tile. And then finally, the bond just fails. The tile starts to pull away from the wall. See? One little crack is all it takes to set the whole thing in motion. So, okay, you found a gap. Your first instinct is probably to just grab a caulk gun and squirt some more in there, right? Makes sense? But that's often the absolute worst thing you can do. Let's talk about how to fix this the right way. Here's the thing you gotta understand. The quick fix, just slapping on more caulk, is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. Sure, you've covered up the symptom, but what you're really doing is trapping all that moisture inside, which makes the actual problem even worse. A real, permanent solution goes deeper. It addresses the root cause by fixing what's going on behind the tile. And this is why calling a pro can be so important. They aren't just gonna look at the gap. They're going to check if the wall itself is moving or if the countertop has settled a bit. They'll look at the original adhesive quality. It's all these little details that make the difference between a repair that lasts for years and one that fails again in a couple months. Okay, now for what might be the most important part of all, prevention. Because once you get what's causing the problem, you can actually take some super simple steps to keep your backsplash locked in tight for the long haul. So here's your new to-do list. Every so often, just take a peek at that caulk line. Look for any cracks, keep that seal fresh. And here's a really great pro tip. Gently tap on your tiles every once in a while. If you hear a kind of hollow sound, that is a huge red flag that the adhesive has failed behind it. Honestly, catching this stuff early will save you so much trouble down the road.
So, yeah, the next time you're in your kitchen, just take a closer look. That little detail, that tiny gap you've been ignoring, it might just be the beginning of a much bigger story. The only real question left is, what is your kitchen trying to tell you?